Mysterious murder of a father who was shot dead in his tent while camping with his two daughters in California.
On June 22, 2018, a serene night under the stars at Malibu Creek State Park turned into a horrific nightmare. Tristan Beaudette, a devoted father and pharmaceutical researcher, was brutally murdered in front of his two young daughters. The shocking crime sent shockwaves through the tranquil Southern California community, unleashing a wave of fear and speculation. As investigators unraveled the mystery, they uncovered a chilling pattern of unsolved shootings and disappearances in the area. Was Tristan's murder a random act of violence or part of a larger, more sinister plot? Today, we examine the disturbing case of the Malibu Creek shooter. In 2018, a young man was killed in Malibu Creek, Southern California, while camping with his two daughters. The incident was linked to a series of unresolved occurrences in the area, sparking public anxiety and conspiracy theories. Erica Wu, born into a Chinese immigrant household, was devastated when she heard her husband was shot and killed in his tent. Tristan Beaudette, a local resident, was not overly reflective or concerned about anything. Erica and Tristan met in high school and began dating. Despite being opposite personalities, they continued to stay in contact and eventually got engaged in 2008. They moved to San Francisco and married in 2008 in front of friends and family at Tilden Park. After a year, Tristan and Erica relocated to Irvine, California, where Tristan got a position with a big pharmaceutical business and Erica started working at UCLA. They were originally from Long Beach in Southern California, but were genuinely happy in Orange County, even if it took them some time to get used to it. Their second daughter was born 2 years after the birth of their first in 2014. Being a father brought Tristan joy. His passion for hiking and camping persisted, and he turned into a lark, getting up with the girls, preparing them breakfast, and letting Erica sleep. He made the most of every chance to visit the mountains or woods. He would frequently take his daughters on family bike trips and hikes. Following her internship, Erica secured employment in the San Francisco Bay Area, and the family initiated preparations to relocate northwards. They discovered a home in an SF suburb with excellent schools for their daughters and all the amenities they needed close by. In the same neighborhood, Tristan secured a new position with a pharmaceutical company. On June 21, 2018, Tristan enjoyed a peaceful breakfast with Erica and their daughters before packing up to leave for his car at the garage door. He gave Erica a hug and kiss, wished her luck on the exam, and promised to celebrate with her when she got back the following day. Scott, the girls, and Tristan drove north to Malibu Creek State Park. When they arrived in the late afternoon, they were given a campsite at the gate. After glancing around when they got there, Tristan concluded they could find a much better location. After looking around the campground, they discovered another location that Tristan deemed ideal. There, they pitched their tents and took turns watching after the females. The joy of the park visits and the initial feelings of erecting the tents filled the day. Additionally, the girls were worn out from cooking over the fire, so Tristan put them to bed as soon as it got dark. After spending some more time together by the fire, the men went off to their tents and said each other goodbye until morning. It was a dark and calm night. The moon did not illuminate the land, and clouds blanketed the sky. Scott was startled awake in the wee hours of June 22 by a loud popping sound. There were 3 additional pops after Scott stood up to investigate the source of the sound. He assumed it was fireworks, but when he heard a baby sobbing from Tristan's tent, he became alarmed and went to investigate. Scott approached the tent and repeatedly called out to Tristan, but he did not answer, and the wailing continued unabated. He entered the tent and shone his flashlight inside. Scott continued calling Tristan's name while calming the younger girl. He discovered Tristan was unconscious when he got close to him. Tristan was motionless in the light and pale. There was a blood puddle near to Tristan's head. Scott attempted to provide his friend with first aid, but it was too late. At the scene, Tristan passed away. Approximately 4:40 a.m. on June 22, 2018, police received reports of a shooting at Malibu Creek State Park. Scott called park rangers to report the incident. The gunman did not come into contact with Tristan or Erica's daughters. Tristan was instantly slain when a single lethal bullet struck him in the head, resembling a lightning strike. Tristan, who had already died, was hit in the torso by the second bullet. The tent was visible through bullet holes. The girls appeared to have been miraculously spared from harm, despite the appearance of someone firing a gun into the tent without purpose at daybreak. This circumstance created the appearance that the gunman didn't care who he killed. As soon as law enforcement officials reached the scene of the tragedy, they started questioning tourists who may have seen the invader while they were in the park. To the patrolman's dismay, however, nobody reported seeing a man brandishing a pistol. Extended interviews with tourists and park staff failed to provide the investigators with the answers they needed. Police have hardly spoken to witnesses since the investigation started, but eventually one did. The witness, a woman who was in a tent next to Tristan and Scott at the time of the attack, said she heard 5 shots fired in quick succession at 4:45 a.m. and wanted to call 911 right away, but was afraid the shooter might be nearby and shoot her as well. She made the decision to exit the tent and contact emergency services after 20 minutes. The second call came from her. Rescuers left for Malibu Creek as soon as they heard the Rangers' call. Investigators found that the weapon's caliber was consistent with that of a hunting rifle during scene analysis. Since hunting rifle bullets usually stay deadly, the bullet could have traveled a long distance. Within that radius, a location was sought after as the shooting's point of origin. Detectives searched the area inside and outside the family tent with the assistance of police, forensics, and service dogs, but they were unable to find anything unusual that could lead to the case's resolution. Who might have shot the scientist and where could the young father have made fatal enemies were the same questions that investigators were asking when no arrests were made, and they were unable to provide any information about the suspect or his motivations. Is there any connection between it and the field he worked in and studied? Research scientist Dr. Tristan Beaudette was employed by a pharmaceutical company. He questioned the safety of immunizations before his passing. Although his work on safer vaccines did spark debate in the pharmaceutical business, there is no evidence to support the theory that Tristan's murder was planned. After conducting more interviews with witnesses and verifying a number of details, it became clear that Tristan Beaudette's murder was not an accident. It was the 6th attack. Furthermore, 2 of them had taken place on the very tent camp that Scott and Tristan had visited. This raised grave suspicions that there was a sniper on the loose. The public area of Malibu Creek Park was closed. The past attacks at the park were not lethal, therefore the public was incensed at the authorities' recklessness for not taking them seriously. The news infuriated the tourists. After the initial instances of injury, it was discovered that this well-liked location is frequently targeted by intruders. Nonetheless, neither the park nor its investigation was halted. The occurrences were not reported to visitors. In fact, the park remained closed after Tristan's murder, and the authorities dismissed every event as an accident involving Hunter. The public was shocked to learn of the security services' negligence. For us, nothing matters more than the security of park visitors. Malibu Creek Park was promptly closed, according to city officials. Nonetheless, despite the park's closure, the neighborhood remained dangerous for residents. 9 times police officers were called to report shooting. There was little evidence at the scene, so the hunt for the culprit went on. When it became clear that the gunman was residing in the park, authorities verified that none of the campers had witnessed anyone entering the campground at that time. Tristan's family, who lost their loved one on June 22nd, has sent their sympathies to the families of the victims. They have opted to stay out of the spotlight amid all of the public excitement, seizing this final opportunity to learn more about the gunman. The motivation and the offender were unclear for months, despite the authorities offering a $30,000 prize for information leading to the identity of the person who may have committed the murders. The death of a young father, Tristan Beaudette, fit into a string of violent crimes that had happened in those locations recently, so investigators were forced to start piecing together the mystery surrounding the mysterious gunshots. The first incident involving biologist James Rogers happened in November 2016. He went camping at Malibu Creek Park, pitched his tent, and dozed off in a hammock. A sharp pain in his right arm woke him up. The man went to the hospital believing he had been bitten by a bat or rodent. He received a rabies vaccination from the physicians, who then sent him home. He spotted what appeared to be bullet fragments of metal in the wound as his arm started to heal. In January 2017, Melissa Tatantangelo and her partner parked their car in the Malibu Creek Park parking lot and went to sleep. This was the second incident. They smelled scorched metal and heard loud gunshots in the middle of the night. They found a shotgun blast hole in the back of the automobile in the morning. Although the neighborhood's residents were murmuring that there might have been a dangerous criminal with a gun wandering around, the police were not alerted to these incidents at the time. In the summer of 2018, people started remembering other terrifying experiences from previous years. There have been rumors that 24-year-old Matrice Richardson vanished in the isolated Californian highlands in 2009. Elaine Park went missing in 2017. Her remains were discovered a few miles from a train station, about a year after she went missing. The hamlet of Calabasas, California, is where she was last observed. A few days later, her automobile containing her personal items was discovered in Malibu on the Pacific Coast side of the road. A month prior to the most recent crime, which happened in a tent in Malibu Creek Park, the body of an American woman vanished from view. The deceased was discovered laying in a tent across the street from the park with traces of brutality. When faced with the series of attacks, investigators designated Malibu Creek Park as a body dump. The crime first appeared to have no other significance. However, as the inquiry went on, more information came to light. 4 days before Tristan Beaudette's death, the driver of a Tesla electric car who has chosen to remain anonymous said that at approximately 4:30 a.m., shots were fired at his vehicle. Detectives in Los Angeles, however, have never been able to establish a link between the crimes. The terrified villagers talked about the potential intentions of the attacker and gave each other safety advice regarding opening doors and windows. The man's death may have been a silly accident, according to some locals who couldn't believe a serial criminal had moved to such a picturesque place where celebrities could be found everywhere. Maybe Tristan Beaudette was just in the wrong location at the wrong moment when someone was shooting drills again. Was there a connection between the man's death and the vacationers' disfigured bodies and the missing women? Sadly, though, the cops had no leads. They could inform the terrified citizens of the town that in August, after a meeting, investigators formally acknowledged that their investigation had come to a standstill out of desperation. Rumors circulated that Tristan may have been killed in connection with a highly valuable and top-secret project he was working on, or that his death was somehow linked to the drug cartels and illegal drugs he was purportedly cultivating in quiet areas of the park. All that could be done was to bide your time, as any lawbreaker would undoubtedly leave evidence behind. And so it was not only aggressive. Crimes in the vicinity of Malibu Creek Park include food theft and break-ins into vacant buildings. Surveillance cameras captured the offender on multiple occasions. The ominous bandit was pursued, but he eluded capture. In between the small infractions, gunshots are still being heard in the hills and a park. A sketch of the burglar has been created. Employee traveling through Malibu Creek noticed a man on the side of the road requesting a ride. The driver declined the stranger instead, stating that his face looked like a sketch of a potential robber. He informed the authorities of the occurrence, and 3 patrolmen and helicopters searched the park area till dusk without finding anything. The community center was thereafter the target of another attack. In an attempt to obtain food, the offender damaged a vending machine and smashed a glass pane. Police officers arrived at the scene right away, followed the trail of freshly made shoe prints, and captured Anthony Rauda, a 42-year-old man wearing all black. There was a rifle in his rucksack. Unofficial accounts state that the invader was homeless and had turned to food theft as a means of subsistence. According to one of his relatives, Anthony had been detained twice in the previous 4 months. He was shortly freed after being imprisoned for crossing the border illegally. The family member further stated that Anthony Rauda had been a resident of the neighborhood for 10 years and that he was terrified of everyone around him. On October 10, 2018, approximately 4 months after the alleged perpetrator, Tristan Beaudette, was killed, Anthony Rauda was apprehended in a canyon close to the park, carrying a rifle in his backpack. He was characterized as a survivalist outdoorsman by the sheriff's department. After being detained initially in relation to multiple thefts in the neighborhood, he was then accused of killing Tristan Beaudette and taking part in more shootings. Anthony Rota had already served time in state jail for explosives possession and then for carrying a loaded handgun, a crime for which a person with a felony conviction is prohibited. When he was arrested, he was on probation. At least 7 more unsolved shootings in the area since November 2016 were reported by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department during the Tristan Beaudette investigation. In early January 2023, state authorities indicted Anthony Rota for all shootings that had been reported in the Malibu Creek area in recent years. He was held accountable for 10 attempted murders, 5 burglaries, and the crime against Tristan Beaudette in total. It appeared that the police had identified a scapegoat and were prepared to wrap up all of the cases by placing the blame on one individual. The suspect, according to the authorities, was also implicated in other unsolved crimes that were perpetrated almost 10 years ago. According to one of the detectives working on the case, this blood fever that lasted for 10 years would make a great Hollywood film. In fact, the entire plot is akin to the screenplay of a brand new blockbuster film, but it is divided into 2 parts, with the real criminal still to be located in the second half. 5 counts of second-degree burglary, 10 counts of attempted murder, and murder were the charges brought against Anthony. Tristan's case has been delayed until he can get legal counsel, according to detectives, who said the allegations were based on a comparison of bullets discovered at the scene of his death and other places where shooting was heard. The report stated that there were concerns over Anthony's capacity to face trial. He was detained for a considerable amount of time while maintaining his innocence. Anthony Rota did appear in court in November 2018. Nevertheless, the defendant started yelling, using foul language, and beating on the walls of his cell during the first hearing, so the guy had to be taken out of the hallway. As soon as the bailiffs took him away, he insisted that his court-appointed attorney be fired. Although residents held out hope that Tristan's killer had at last been apprehended, the gunfire in Malibu Creek during the night never stopped. The jury cleared Anthony Rota of the first-degree murder charge, but found him guilty of the second-degree murder charge. Anthony Rota was found guilty of 1 count of attempted murder and 1 count of firing at a car 4 days before to Tristan's death. Anthony Rota was sentenced to 119 years in prison by a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge, according to a statement from the district attorney's office. However, state law penalized the man. Could Anthony Rota have been that upset in the last few years to shoot people in the mountains without purpose? There seems to be evidence in support of that. What about the nighttime gunfire that folks kept hearing long after the perpetrator was taken into custody? A local journalist in Malibu who was dubious from the beginning still harbors doubts about the government's account of what happened. The Malibu Creek shooter case raises unanswered questions. Erica Wu, Tristan Beaudette's wife, suspects the gunman may still be at large and has filed a $90 million lawsuit against Los Angeles and California authorities for failing to warn the public about the park's risks despite multiple deaths. With the crime's motivation unknown and perpetrator Anthony's erratic behavior, concerns linger about preventability and accountability. As the case unfolds, it's crucial to prioritize justice, transparency, and prevention to ensure no more innocent lives are lost and the true criminal faces consequences, bringing closure to the victims' families.